everyone. Welcome to our show, Let's Talk Sarcoidosis. I'm your host, Dorothea Howard, and alongside of me is Mr. Lawrence Franklin. He's the co-host of the show. Welcome, Laurie.
Welcome, Dorothea. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm glad to have you.
Well, thank you.
Great. We have a great show for you today. Sarcoidosis is the buzzword for the show. We know that many of us in the local area, as well as around the globe, have never heard of sarcoidosis. It is still considered a mystery disease. So we hope that you have your pen and your notepad, because we don't want you to miss the important facts about this mystery disease. So we're going to just jump right into it and just give you some information about the illness. We don't claim to be physicians. However, we are veterans with this illness. Both Larry and I have the illness, and we want to possibly save lives and give you some information to let you know that you can live a productive life coping with this illness. Sarcoidosis is an inflammatory illness that causes tiny granuloma cells that can affect any major organ of your body. It can affect multiple organs of your body as well. It is a systematic disease. With that being said, 90% of sarcoidosis, it does affect your lungs. With your lungs, I mean, you can have COPD, which is chronic pulmonary disease, and that is really something that sarcoidosis mimics. We wanted to kind of get back to when we were actually diagnosed with sarcoidosis. I want to start out by saying that this disease dates back to 1899 by a pioneering dermatologist by the name of Caesar Bueck. He phrased the coin because he also realized that he saw skin nodules, which he called sarcoma. And this is basically the origin of this disease. With that being said as well, I can remember back when I was 17 years old. Keep in mind, I wasn't clinically diagnosed yet. But with this illness, I do recall at 17 that I would get this very distinctive rash on my chin. And the funny thing about it is I would have 3 lines. So I would have a line in the middle, a line on both sides of my chin. It was a reddish purple raised line. Sometimes it itched and sometimes it didn't itch. But the thing that happened, it was seasonally, it appeared to be anyway during that time. And I would just put cortisone on it because I had no idea that I was actually down the road going to be diagnosed with sarcoidosis. With that, it just continued on year after year. And then finally, one day, I was diagnosed at the age of 26. And sarcoidosis, it affects men and women from the ages of 20 to 40 years old, and particularly African American, but let me tell you, it can affect any race, and it can affect you at any part of your body. With that also being said, Larry, I know that we both have sarcoidosis, and I've had it for 30 years now, coping with it, which is, a long time. And you've had it for how long now?
I'm going on my 20th year being diagnosed. What's interesting is sarcoidosis doesn't just manifest itself just in the lesions, but also how I found out was back in 1990. I was going on a run. I was a runner, and on the way back, I was going up a hill, and I felt this massive pressure on my chest. I didn't know what was going on. I had to stop. I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's okay. You have exercise-induced asthma." He gave me some medication. I still struggled a little bit with running, but it wasn't until 1995 when I had another episode. I was going up some steps, and my wife took me to my medical doctor, who's also an allergist, and she checked me for allergies. And when she pricked my arm, I passed out.
Wow.
And what was interesting about it was when I woke up in the hospital, they brought a pulmonologist in, and I'm laying in the hospital, and he comes over to me and he says, well, you don't look sick. And
Wow.
I
We
was
get that
asking
all
him,
the time.
yes, yes, we do. And I said, well, what does sick look like? He said, well, you don't look sick. He said, I think we're going to check you, we're going to test you for sarcoidosis. And that's basically how I found out that I had the sarcoidosis.
Wow. You know, the interesting thing about that is my story is a little similar. I was 26 when I was clinically diagnosed, although I had these crazy symptoms prior, but I noticed that I kept getting short of breath. And I would cough, this annoying cough, and it was a dry cough. But back, 26 years old, you think you have the flu or something. So I kind of brushed it off, really. And as the days, kept going, and I thought, wait a minute, something's not right. And then I just kept coughing, and then the out of breath was just getting worse. And then one day, I literally woke up, and it looked like I dropped about 30 or 40 pounds. I mean, I looked in
Wow.
a mirror, and when I say that I look like a skeleton, it terrified me. That's when I knew something was just really wrong. So I went to the doctors, and at the time I went to a clinic, and they said, "Oh, well, we'll do a chest X-ray." And I said, "I don't know what's wrong. I'm feeling bad. I think I have the flu." And the doctor, well, the technician, he gave me a chest X-ray. But I don't know about you, Larry, but when I look at people's faces, and when he came out, he looked like he saw death at the door, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm dying. So he looked at me, and by him being a technician, he couldn't really tell me about my X-rays. He had to refer me to my physician, but what he did say is you need to be checked in to a hospital. And right there, I was just really upset. And, I went on to the hospital, like he said, and made arrangements. And, let me see what I'm going to do because I have a daughter. And so I made arrangements, and I went over to the hospital. But little did I know that I was going into the hospital and was going to get this type of diagnosis. I was in the hospital for 5 days. During that time, they didn't know what I had. I mean, they were telling me I had lymphoma because my lymph nodes were completely swollen over my entire body. My liver was twice the size that it should have been. My spleen was twice the size that it should have been. So I was really critical and didn't even realize how bad off I was. But once they did all these different tests, and they said they're going to do a biopsy, and after me crying my eyeballs out, because, think about it, at 26 years old, and they're telling you, oh, we think you have lymphoma. So, it just went on and on, the testing, and then finally, they did a biopsy in my neck, and the doctor came back and said, well, the good news is you don't have lymphoma, but the bad news is you have sarcoidosis, pulmonary sarcoidosis, and we really don't know how to treat this. And I'm thinking, if you guys are the doctors, and during this time, and they really wasn't sure what to do, I was really afraid. So, to make a long story short, they said they were going to try me on prednisone, and that was the medicine of choice at that time because it reduces inflammation, very quickly. So they put me, of course, on these high doses. And when they put me on these different dosages of prednisone, then, weight gain, everything came along with it. But at that point, I just wanted to make sure my body didn't reject it. So thank God it did not reject the prednisone. And there you go. That's coping with the illness. So what about you?
Well, I was 36 when I was diagnosed. And what's interesting is that what I found during my journey with the disease is that a lot of people do not know about it, but they also don't understand the disease. They don't understand prednisone. They hear about the side effects and they panic.
Right.
And my story is when I first got on prednisone, one of the things that I used to keep by my nightstand is a box of cards. And
Playing cards?
no, this is a box of greeting cards
Oh,
that
greeting cards.
that said
Okay.
I'm sorry or
Right.
forgive me, because prednisone, there are a lot of side effects to prednisone,
Oh,
and one of
yes.
the things that it did was it kind of changed my personality a little bit.
Oh, yes, it
My
can
wife
alter
would
it.
say it changed it a lot.
Right.
But it can alter your personality. It can
Yes.
alter your physical being also.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that reason why we're having this talk is because we want to tell people that there are things that you can do that will help you to get around that.
Yes.
Some people, I've heard people say to me, well, I have sarcoidosis, or they may be taking prednisone because they have asthma or something,
Right.
or I'm not going to take that because it makes me do this, it makes me blow up, I feel really bad when I take it. Well, one of the things that my wife and I did was we went to see a nutritionist to find out how to combat the prednisone. And there's a really good book out there called Coping with Prednisone that I really recommend that everyone, anyone that has to take prednisone or that has sarcoidosis, I really recommend that they get this book.
You hear that, viewers? You really need to get that book, because that book can almost, I'm pretty sure, save your life.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I really believe that. I truly believe that. Also, you have to make some lifestyle changes.
Oh, definitely.
And I've gone through quite a few in the last 20 some years too.
You're not alone.
And all for the good. I've seen friends around me and family who were stricken with diseases who did not take care of themselves.
Yes.
And one of the things that I am committed to doing is taking care of myself, to make sure that I'm around for not only my wife and my kids, but my grandkids.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, the thing about this illness is that the viewers need to know that this disease affects hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And we're talking, you know, everywhere.
Absolutely.
And this is what they need to know. The other important message that we need to let them know is that we need to be proactive in our own health care.
Absolutely.
So when we feel that something is wrong, our bodies give us a warning. So what we need to do as, you know, people in general is to listen to our bodies, because if something is not right, 9 times out of 10, there's something not right. And what we need to do is when we go to the doctors, even for our checkups, we need to let them know that if we had certain symptoms, you know, let them know, hey, you know, by the way, this happened to me. The one thing that they need to do, and that everyone needs to do to continue to promote sarcoidosis awareness, you know, we need to ask the doctors, can you test us for sarcoidosis? You know, there's a possibility that I might have sarcoidosis. And, you know, the symptoms, that's one of the other things that, let's talk about that. Some of the symptoms of sarcoidosis, it mimics other illnesses.
Absolutely.
And that's why most of the time this illness is misdiagnosed. Now, by it being misdiagnosed, it can be deadly. for the fact that if you're walking around and all these things are happening to your body and you're not getting the proper diagnosis, it can be fatal. You know, we do know that some of these symptoms, because I've had them myself, and I'm sure you've
Yes,
had it.
absolutely.
I mean, the
Yeah.
dry cough. You know, we don't want our viewers to run to the doctors and say, "Oh my goodness, I may have this," because we don't want to scare anyone in thinking that maybe they do. However, on the other hand, we do want them to be educated enough about the illness, because for the most part, we've had many people that express to me and also to you that they've never heard of the disease.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's a problem.
Yes.
And this is why we decided that we wanted to do the show, because we really wanted to use ourselves as an example to help the thousands of people out there that could be going through what we've already been through. They may have been just diagnosed, or they may not even know that they have it. So the question for the viewers, you know, would be, do you have sarcoidosis? You know, and the other symptoms that I don't know if you've had them, but we can talk about it, but body aches. I've had body aches, and that's why I thought I had the flu. My entire body was just aching. Some days I didn't feel like getting out of the bed, and I thought, you know, I'm tired, I'm exhausted because I have the flu. And then sometimes, like you said before, you would get up and then you just feel like, oh my gosh, you feel nauseous, like you're going to faint. I mean, these are some of the symptoms that I really brushed off because, you know, I'm thinking I'm too young to have anything major going on. But that's at that time, that's what I was thinking. But what other symptoms did you have?
Well, before I get into the symptoms, one of the things I wanted to really say is, men, please pay attention to your body. Dorothea mentioned it a little while ago, but we have a tendency to, if we have an ache or pain, we rub it off and we go on about our business, and we tend to be real macho. But this illness, we really have to pay attention to our body and take care of ourselves.
Right.
Some of the symptoms, the main symptom was the shortness of breath. The acid reflux was just incredible.
Right.
But one of the things that I'll never forget, the doctor putting me on Prevacid. And
Did that work?
He put me on some medication. It worked a little bit, but it really, really bothered me and burned my chest. I could feel the burning sensation. And I went back to him and I said, Doc, do you have something else that you could prescribe for me? Right. And he said, he told me, he said, well, I don't have anything else that I can prescribe for you, but he said, do you know that a lot of this is caused by stress? And I thought about that for a moment, and one of the things that I try to do as much as I can is yes, is take the stress out.
Yes, absolutely.
But we need to be very, very cognizant when we have any kind of illness or disease that stress exacerbates it.
Oh yes, I mean, absolutely. One of the one of the things that will actually activate sarcoidosis, or bring it out of remission if it's in remission, is stress.
Yes.
And that's any illness. Even if you don't have an illness, you'll be sick if you have lots of stress. So we have to be mindful of that and try to keep it at a low level, because it's not good for us, and it's really not good for anyone. But even with the stress and other things that you have just in a daily activity, we have to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's the most important message that we could put out there for anyone. You have to think about yourself first, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else.
Absolutely.
So, you first and then everybody else, because how are you going to cope with the illness and then cope with everyday life? We do it every day. We're both busy people. We have families. And, you know, we out there and we do what we do. But the one thing that we're going to bring to this television show is, you know, we're going to bring medical professionals on. We're going to bring other patients on so they can share their stories with all the viewers, because it affects everyone differently. So that's why we want to be able to just really just talk about everything and how it affects everybody. The other interesting piece is that even some people that have sarcoidosis, they actually have other diseases as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, some people, they are living and coping with something totally different. Well, sarcoidosis is enough. So to have 2 and 3 illnesses on top of that, you know, hopefully with the guests that we have on the show, they can really bring some light to the illness, and also give us a lifestyle that we can adjust to and cope with this illness, and that we can continue to have a productive lifestyle and travel the world and do the things that we do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's really important. So anybody that have questions about this illness, you know, we definitely encourage them to look at the credits and, you know, get in touch, and especially if they want to share their story.
And like we said, we're not experts. We've lived with the disease for a good portion of our life. I can tell you that I have chronic sarcoidosis, which means that the disease for me has never gone in remission. I've been on prednisone for the whole 19, going on 20 years that I was diagnosed with the disease. I'm on a very low dosage now, but again, I'm still on the prednisone.
Right.
But I control it and with exercise and with diet. So that's the plus, that you can. There are things that you can do to help you with the disease.
Well, let everybody know exactly what type of exercise that you do, because I find it quite impressive, you know, that you can do what you do with, you know, pulmonary sarcoidosis.
Well, I've done probably hundreds of bike rides, 183
Which is
miles, 100 milers,
Right.
50 milers. I do a lot of that. Before I got a little bit older, I used to, I used to run. Even with the
Right.
sarcoidosis, I used to run. One of the things that my doctor encouraged me to do is to stay away from the running because of the pounding on the body.
Right.
And sarcoidosis and prednisone can, in some instances, make your bones brittle. But again, you need to do the right things and listen to your doctors, and listen to other caretakers as far as what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's true. I mean, that's true. And the other thing is, too, just being able to move and stay positive. I can't stress enough about attitude.
Absolutely.
About any illness. You have to remain positive. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done, but when you have an illness that, you know, could be fatal, you really need to have the attitude of, you know what, I have this illness and I am going to cope with it. I'm going to do the best that I can do. And I mean, that's all we can do. You know, you have to have faith, because we all have had times, I'm sure, I've had times, I'm sure you've had times
yes,
where you're thinking, oh my goodness, you know, because this happened and that happened. And I mean, you do have your flare-ups. You know, you have your flare-ups, and, you know, one day we could be okay. The next day, you know, we can be in bed, can't get up. So it's important to know that when you're not feeling well, ask that doctor. You know, you have to say, listen, doctor, check me, because this is not a disease that they automatically check you for, right?
Absolutely.
You know, it's not something that you check off a list. Okay, let me check you for sarcoidosis. So you have to bring it to their attention, not to say that the physicians don't know about it, because there are many physicians that do know about it. And then there's some that may not know about it. I don't believe that they, you know, even teach this to their medical students. I'm not sure. I can't verify that, but that's why I said I don't believe. But we will have some physicians on there that can give us those answers, give us the facts that we need. And the great thing about it, hopefully it has more awareness, because right now it's lack of attention, lack of awareness, lack of research, lack of funding, lack of everything.
Lack of knowledge. Yeah.
Lack of everything.
Yeah.
Because I'm still appalled by the amount of people that never heard about it.
Right.
Until you mentioned, someone that was a celebrity status that had the disease. What about you?
We were just talking to someone today, just not even 10, 15 minutes ago before we came on air, and the two people had never even heard about it. So we have to educate ourselves. We have to be aware, and also family support and support groups are critical.
Yes.
What's interesting is I was doing some online research the other day, and I believe it's only 22 states in the District of Columbia have support groups for sarcoidosis, and that's pretty. It's pretty scary.
It is. And then the question is, why is that? That's the question. Why is that happening? And maybe because sometimes people may not want to share their stories. And, I know people that have it, and some are worse, than others. And some people are, private about it. But, we have lots of shows coming up, and, we're going to be excited about all the other things. And there's so much that we can talk about, as you know. Our time is up, unfortunately, but we will continue to bring you some fabulous information. One thing we want to say is that we both have sarcoidosis.
But sarcoidosis
doesn't have us. And so until next time, we want you to live your life, stay positive, and be blessed. Thanks for watching.